This is the real greatest player of all time. You may not believe me because he's only 10 years old, but the evidence is on my favor. Even though Magnus Carlsen and Garry Kasparov are the top contenders for the GOAT title, it took them years, maybe decades to reach their peak level. But it looks like this little dude will get there way faster than that. During the peak of COVID-19, Faustino Oro had a rating of 200, and he was getting checkmated in the weirdest possible way. Look at this, for example. The king can't move anywhere because of the knight that somehow is in the corner. He played this game with an accuracy of 4%. Little did you know, 11 months later, he was rated 2200. I remember watching his YouTube videos back then. He was 7 years old trying to reach 2200 on chess.com. 7.
Hola, soy Faustino, tengo 7 años y hoy voy a estar jugando en chess.com.
Fast forward just a little bit and he became the youngest player in history to break those 2200. But not online this time. I'm talking FIDE rating. Then the youngest to break 2300. 3000 blitz on chess.com. And now, the youngest player in the universe to become an international master at 10 years old. Magnus was 12 years old, so he has a 2-year advantage on Magnus Carlsen, plus access to all type of engines you can possibly imagine, and all the resources to become a world champion. And what really makes it easy for Fausti to become inevitable is that he doesn't have to play a 23-year-old Magnus Carlsen, who was destroying everyone and not letting anyone come anywhere near his level. If you still can't dimension how young this dude is, he was born just 4 months before this selfie, 1 month before Paul Walker passed away, and 1 month after GTA 5 came out. I know, I feel very old too. The first time Magnus won versus a title player, he was 10 years old and 8 months, and he was versus a FIDE master, while Faustino at 10 years old and 7 months has beaten 4 Grandmasters, 7 International Masters, 14 FIDE Masters, 1 woman Grandmaster and 1 woman International Master. So 27 times more than Magnus at a younger age, not even counting the online wins versus multiple title players every single day, including the win versus Magnus Carlsen himself, also Hikaru Nakamura, and big personalities like Gotham Chess. And very small reminder, subscribe if you haven't done it and you will become a Grandmaster before Faustino. There's a 23-year gap between Magnus and Fausti, and only 122 points are separating them in online rating. Allow me to remind you that since 2023, Fausti has gained almost 500 points. Do you really think he can get another 122? Now, this is a game that Faustino played in the tournament where he became an international master. Fausti with the white pieces played versus Alex Tornero from Spain. Fausti opens out with pawn to d4 and pawn to c4. e6 by his opponent, opening up the diagonal for this bishop. Fausti goes knight to f3 and pawn to c5 by his opponent. Fausti is not interested in taking the pawn and goes pawn to d5. Pawn takes d5 and pawn takes d5, threatening to go pawn to d6, so you have to go d6 yourself. Knight to c3 and pawn to g6. Of course, you cannot develop this bishop via this diagonal because it is blocked by your own pawn, so you have to fianchetto the bishop. Now, bishop to f4 by Faustino, bishop g7, and pawn to h3, stopping any bishop g4 ideas, which is super annoying in the future. His opponent castles, pawn to e3 by Faustino to develop this bishop on f1. Knight to a6, giving Fausti the possibility to take the knight and double the pawns. And he takes it. He takes the knight on a6, pawn takes a6, and now you do have double pawns, but you also have the b file for yourself, and you can try to attack on the b file at some point. Now, rook to c1, rook to b8 to attack on the b file right away, but as you can tell, it is very easy to defend against any type of attack on the b file. You can simply push the pawn, and that's it. Pawn to a5 by his opponent, and now Faustino castles. Bishop to a6, attacking the rook on f1, so Fausti simply moves the rook to e1. Knight to h5, attacking the bishop on f4, and also putting some pressure on the knight on c3, which is currently defended by the rook. Now Faustino moves the bishop all the way back to h2, and now his opponent goes pawn to f5, and this is an inaccuracy because this move allows this pawn to become a passed pawn. You don't believe me, there's a pawn in front of it, of course, but let me show you what happens. Pawn to e4 by Faustino, pawn takes e4, and knight takes e4, and now the pawn on d6 is attacked 2 times, by the bishop on h2 and by the knight on e4. So now his opponent blocks the way of the bishop by going knight to f4. Faustino simply takes the knight, rook takes f4, and knight takes d6. This is the first brilliant of the... Yeah, I said first. There are multiple brilliants in this game by Faustino. Queen takes d6 and rook to e6, attacking the queen, and the bishop, well, the queen is pinned, the bishop is going down. Queen goes to d7, and now Faustino simply takes the bishop on a6, and now that's a passed pawn. I don't know what happened. That was so quick, and now this pawn doesn't have anything in front of it. This is a passed pawn. That's beautiful. Now his opponent goes rook to f8, putting some pressure on the f-file. Rook takes c5, and rook takes f3, sacrificing some material to bring the queen closer to the attack. But Fausti says, you know what? You can dance all you want around my king. I'm going to promote. rook takes f3, and queen to d5 check. The king goes to the corner, and now rook to c8, sacrificing the rook to distract the queen. Now the queen is not defending this rook anymore. So there's queen takes f3, sacrificing the other rook. Faustino just sacrificed both rooks in 2 moves. That's impressive. But his opponent doesn't take it. Did he miss that rook? No, because if you take the rook on a6, there's simply queen to a8, and this is checkmate. You can simply block with the queen and with the bishop, and the king is in the corner and it has nowhere to go. So that's why his opponent didn't take it, and instead he went queen to c1 check, king to g2 getting out of the check, and queen to g5. And now Faustino is simply going to block from all the checks, queen to d2, queen to f2 blocking, and his opponent is very slowly running out of checks. For example, here in this position, you have no checks available. So he goes back all the way to c8, attacking the rook one more time. So Faustino says, you know what? Let me not defend that rook. Let me sacrifice the rook again with the exact same idea. Now if you take the rook on a6, now there's queen to e8 and you, well, the same thing as before. So instead of taking the rook, his opponent goes bishop to d4, and Faustino does not want to defend that rook. He goes queen to d2 with another brilliant. If you take the rook on a6, let me show you. There's queen to d4 with a check. You have to move the king to g8, that's the only move, and pawn to d7, and you cannot stop this promotion. So his opponent moves the bishop away, and Faustino finally gets the rook out of the attack. Rook takes a7, pawn to a4, and rook to c7, attacking the queen. The queen goes to d8, and now queen to h6, threatening checkmate in 1 move on h7. So his opponent defends the checkmate, but Faustino, you know that rook that he has been trying to get rid of the whole time? Well, rook takes h7 check, sacrificing the rook for the last time. This is not checkmate, you can take the rook, but his opponent in this position resigned. But why the hell did he resign? Well, after queen takes h7, you don't take the queen, you go queen to f8 check. You can only block with the queen, and now queen takes f6. That's another check. You can either now block with the queen or move the queen away, it doesn't matter. Pawn to d7 is gonna come, and you cannot stop this promotion. Absolutely mind-blowing that he plays like this at 10 years old. When I was 10, I was eating dirt, and I was so proud of it. It all comes down to how you define intelligence, what you know right now, or how quick you can learn that. Let's say we have a person A who learned something in 10 years. Then we have a person B who learned 90% of that in just 5 years. Who is more intelligent? One already knows everything, but the other has a higher ability to acquire and apply knowledge. How many years does Fausti need to be ahead of Magnus to be considered the GOAT? What do you think will happen first? Fausti reaching 2700 or Hans Niemann becoming the world champion? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't done it, and I will see you in the next game.